Welcome, welcome, welcome to Unbounded with Trina for an episode that I'm excited to share with Deanna Scaldaferri. And Unbounded with Trina is a place where you get to be inspired to create your most amazing life. May it be personally, professionally, because you're one person. It's a holistic experience, and we're here to share information with you, to encourage you, to inspire you, and to ignite that fire that lives inside of you that will motivate you and take you to the next level and the next level and the next level and the next level. And to the point that you're just full of happiness, joy, and feeling complete, unbounded from all limitations. And today we're going to have a great conversation with Deanna in sharing some information around how to turn your pain into power and what she's learned in her life. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Deanna, and then we're going to bring her right in and get to it. So Deanna was born and raised in the suburbs of New York City into a large, close-knit Italian Catholic family. Faith and family have always been at the forefront. She's a single mother of three teenage sons who keep her active and on her toes at all times, as you can imagine, running from various sports and different activities. Deanna studied international business in college and worked briefly in the corporate environment. Then, after being a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, she found her true calling in a second career in massage therapy. She's a massage therapist, as well as I'm going to let her explain more about her being a Reiki master,
Reiki Miss.
Reiki master, and a transformational life coach. She absolutely loves what she does in helping people on their individual healing journeys. And we're so excited she's here to share with you today. Now, over the last 7 years, Deanna has been on her own personal and spiritual awakening and healing journey. Life handed her some pretty traumatic situations, and she had to learn how to overcome them so that she could move forward in her life in a positive and healthy direction. Grief, narcissistic abuse, and divorce almost took her down for good, but it didn't, because she's done a ton of inner work and is so incredibly grateful to have been able to push through and make it to a much healthier and happier place in life. She is focused on taking her pain and turning it into power by using her story to help inspire others along their healing journeys. If she can do it, she says, so can you. Welcome, Deanna, to Unbounded with Trina.
Thank you, Trina. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited for everyone to get to meet you and hear your story of how you turned your pain into power. And as I read in your bio and introducing you, you mentioned narcissistic abuse, and it's part of the transition and the difficulty that you faced in life. And as we've spoken in the past about that, I would love for you to share with the audience, give them a picture of what you meant by that, what that experience was for you, and if someone themselves is in that situation, that what they might be looking out for.
Hmm. It's a great startup question. So yes, narcissistic abuse is pretty specific. However, it encompasses both mental abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse. It could be physical abuse. It could be financial abuse. There's a lot of different layers of it. And again, everyone's situation could be a little bit different. But in my situation, I was in a relationship for quite a long time where I didn't know for a very long time that there was even this abuse happening because it was very subtle. It was it took a long time. It was very slow to really come to the surface. But the biggest thing that I would say, there are many signs or red flags that you could look out for. But the biggest one is that it's a lack of having a voice in the relationship, meaning, a normal, healthy relationship, you each have two people, whether it's a friendship or a romantic relationship or even a work relationship. There's two people, there's give and take, there's compromise. And things go both ways. Each person has a voice, has an opinion, has a say. So the biggest thing I can say on a general platform, as far as an indicator that if you're in an unhealthy relationship, it's that you start to recognize that you don't have a voice. Every time you try to speak your opinion, speak your mind, it's always quieted. Um, and quieted, it could be quieted, in a soft way. It could be quieted in a bad way where there's arguments and fighting. But recognizing that when you stand up for yourself to say, no, this is what I'd like to do, or this is what I'd like, there's no chance for you. So it's about control,
Mhm.
really. So the abuse part is about you're being controlled. Um, and so I think, again, it's subtle, and in your daily life it can be missed, myself included. It can be, justified in a million different ways. But at the base of it, at the core of it, it really turns into, if there is no compromise in any relationship, if there is no give and take, then there is no relationship.
So regardless of what we call it, because there's so many terms now, like, a lot of people are speaking about narcissism now, about
Yes.
narcissistic abuse, and not to diminish or in any way anyone's experience. I just want us, as because we're not licensed therapists or in a position to really diagnose and understand that there's a diagnosis around a person being narcissistic. However, you can be aware of the tendencies, you can be aware of the signs, you can be aware, because that's what matters, is your experience within a relationship, the impact that it's having in you. So I would imagine you've done a lot of research, you had a lot of experience, because I know you have a support group, I think, that you work
Yes.
with as well. So tell us a little
Yes.
bit about, based on your research and the other women that you've encountered, what are some of the things that they've experienced that others can look out for?
Okay, that's great. So I want to start with, Trina, is that, again, everyone's relationships, everyone's situations are different. However, with narcissism and the abuse, narcissistic abuse that goes with it, it is about recognizing the patterns of behavior. So
Mhm.
again, my situation can be different from yours. However, the patterns are pretty well scripted. So that's one. I have many. So now I have a support group specifically for people, both men and women, that come, that are suffering from the effects of narcissistic abuse. And there are many things that are said that are across the line, but many of it is like, wow, I didn't realize, like, other people are suffering from this too. Oh wow, that sounds exactly like my life and my relationship. Oh wow, when other people are talking, they're recognizing, okay, I'm not the only one that had that situation, that experienced that, or was treated in a certain way, because there are across the board patterns of behavior. So with narcissism, yes, it is a mental illness. It is a personality disorder that can be and should be diagnosed by a mental health professional. So I state that every month at my meetings, that I am not a mental health professional, which is fine. However, what I speak to is that from my own personal experience and my expertise of all of the research that I have done for my own personal experience, is that there are these patterns of behavior. So even if you're with someone, and I'll say generally, it's not that the person who is a narcissist is generically or inherently bad. It's that their behaviors are toxic, their behaviors are unhealthy, their behaviors are abusive. And so it's calling out the behaviors. Again, everyone has a journey in their life, and I say it often, that hurt people, right? Everyone had come from a place of childhood, and maybe trauma was involved in traumatic situations. So I also come from a place of not judging whatever the person is. It's just judging the behavior and saying, this behavior is not okay. It is not healthy. I will not only tolerate it, I will not accept it, because it's not healthy.
Yeah. So if we could get specific a little bit around the behaviors, that if, say, if you could maybe give us, imagine one of the people that's in your support group that came and told her story. And
Okay.
she said, this was my experience. Let's call her Jenny.
Okay.
Jenny
Okay.
came and said, this is my experience. And others would say, oh my God, I'm having that exact same experience. What might she be saying?
Okay. Um, One of the most common is the whole gaslighting, which is again a lot of phrases are now thrown around on social media, and people are talking about toxic behaviors, gaslighting, love bombing. There's a lot of phrases that are have to do and deal with narcissistic abuse. But gaslighting is one of the most common. So Jenny might say, I have a boyfriend, and everything started out great, and everything was wonderful. But then, slowly, suddenly, he maybe criticize or belittle me and say things that just didn't feel right. And so then when I approach my boyfriend and say, when you said that, that really hurt me. It didn't make me feel good. Then Jenny's boyfriend is going to somehow twist it around and say, "Oh, you misunderstood. Oh, I was only joking. You took that the wrong way." And basically, and that is what gaslighting is. It's turning it around to putting blame and the onus on the other person. So Jenny walks away very confused because she said, "Huh, he said something that hurt my feelings. I went up to him to confront him and say, that hurt me." Right now, in a normal relationship, right, you would talk it out. Apologies would be made. "I didn't know that I hurt you. I'm so sorry. I'll be more aware of it next time." The awareness is very key, right? But in this situation, Jenny not only didn't get an apology for how he made her feel, he also made her feel like it was her fault, like she misunderstood. She must have didn't realize he was joking around, or so Jenny walks away feeling very confused. Okay. Now, in a one-off situation, that might not be the end of the world. However, when that happens time and time again, over and over, small things, big things, okay, what happens is it starts to make you, Jenny, question herself, question her own reality, question her own like self-esteem and confidence. Well, I didn't understand it. Maybe it was something I did. How did I do this? And it spirals from there. So that's what I mean by it's very subtle. On the surface, anyone might say, okay, that's not a big deal. But when it happens over and over, and again, the Jenny's boyfriend is just saying, like, I don't know, you misunderstood, it's you. It's a slow degradation of her self-esteem and her own questioning her own reality. And it's very confusing.
Yeah, and and for Jenny in this scenario for our story that we're telling here, our example, Jenny could also find it difficult, I would imagine, to explain it to anyone else.
Yes, exactly. And exactly, Trina. And so then the next step from there, which is another big one, a common one in my group that I hear, is that, okay, so now you're questioning yourself inside and you're thinking, is it me? Did I do something wrong? Was it? And so you keep it inside. You typically wouldn't tell someone because you can barely explain it yourself, right? You're trying to understand it, right? But then again, over time, you start to think, well, I don't want to tell someone, they wouldn't understand it. They'll think I'm crazy, something's wrong with me. So that now the opposite of that, now in that same situation where Jenny went to the boyfriend and said, this is how you made me feel, and he disregards it. That's a gentle way of just, discarding it. However, the other way, an alternative way of that playing out is where Jenny stands up and says, no, that really hurt my feelings. And I didn't like that you said that. And you're not taking ownership of it, and still keeps pushing the boyfriend.
Mhm.
And that's where it can get confrontational. It can get pretty ugly, to be honest. Okay. Because why? Jenny's boyfriend is now feeling like it's all about control. He's not in control. Jenny's not just passively taking it and walking away. She's standing up. She's holding me accountable. And a narcissist does never wants to be held accountable because in their mind they didn't do anything wrong. So now Jenny's saying this is not okay and standing up, and then things start to escalate, and that's where then fights, screaming. I mean, again, it goes from a very simple situation to it could be very, very ugly. So a lot of the things that I hear is when people will say, I don't understand. Like our relationship was fine and he was so loving and everything was great. And then, I said one thing because I didn't want to go out to dinner with, Susie, whatever it is, they could be very small things. He got so angry and he was yelling at me and mad, and then it escalated from there. So the key pieces with narcissism and its abuse are the fact for the need for control, needing to control a person, control a situation. When a narcissist is confronted and being trying to be held accountable for the behavior, that's where a lot of anger ensues, and that's how things will start to escalate. From that, I can go a step further
Mhm.
actually, and then from that, if Jenny, let's say Jenny still says, that's not right, I demand an apology, this, that, whatever, and the boyfriend gets really upset, Jenny could walk away upset, he walks away upset, and in some way, Jenny's boyfriend is going to, and I say it like punish her because in some way he will lash back out at her, whether it's, again, it could be such a broad range, could be a physical piece, but in some way, maybe silent treatment, maybe withholding of affection. There could be many things. Oh, I was going to go out to dinner with you tonight. Now I'm not going because you made me so angry that I'm not going. So there's some sort of punishment. And there's no other, honestly, I use that word because I feel like there's no other word to explain it, but that's exactly what it is. So for someone to recognize the situation, it's almost like you're stepping outside of the situation to observe it, to watch it, and say, okay, so it started with one little incident, right? And then from there, Jenny got upset, confronted him. He wouldn't let it go. She wouldn't let it go. So he got angry. Now he's yelling and screaming. Now he punished her and is not, giving her any physical attention or any physical affection, silent treatment. Now they've gone a week of not speaking because he was upset that she called out his behavior. That's basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because now Jenny has been punished, and who wants to be punished?
Exactly.
So
We're going to
then,
go a step further, Trina.
yeah, so
Exactly. I
take
love
us
it.
there.
I love it. We're on the same wavelength. That's exactly it. So now Jenny thinks to herself, this was awful, right? We've had an awful week. I've been so upset. My boyfriend's not talking to me, all because I said I was upset about X, Y, and Z, right? So what does Jenny subconsciously learn? The next time the boyfriend says or does something that she doesn't like, she has a choice, right? She has a choice to say, I'm going to confront him about it because that wasn't right and it made me, it hurt my feelings. Or she's going to remember that situation that happened, right? And oftentimes it's not just one, it's many. She's going to remember that situation and now she's going to say, is it actually even worth it for me to confront him and bring this up? Because he's going to get mad. He's going to punish me. I'm going to be upset, crying, scream, all of that. So it's like your mind then plays it out, right?
Mhm.
And because you've had many situations like that in the past, again, you're trying to decide. It's almost like a picking your battles. Like, do I even bring it up, or it's going to be bad. But here's the problem with that, Trina, and this is what I speak to often, because the bottom line is, if over time in a relationship like this, if you decide it's easier not to say anything, I'm just going to keep quiet because you know what, I know how this is going to play out. If you continue to do that over time and time after again, that's how you lose your voice. That's how you lose your voice in a relationship where then you turn around one day and you think, I don't have a voice at all. I'm not heard. I'm not seen. I'm not in any. I might be physically here in this situation, but I'm not. Okay, so that's where again these are extremes, but once and for me personally, it's like that. It took many years for me to get to that point where I recognize not only do I not have an opinion, a voice, anything, the light inside of me of who I am was just so broken down because it had been criticized and belittled and berated and made to feel, right, that I was to blame, that all of these issues and things were my fault and that something must be wrong with me. So then it starts to play into your, who you are. And over time, you get to the point where hopefully, God willing, you do recognize like this is not healthy. This is not how a relationship is supposed to be.
Right. And so I want to say that I just thank you so much for being willing to share with the audience today because like you say it's so subtle
Yes.
that if you don't know that that exists, that you don't
Yes.
know that that's a real thing, that that's a, I'll call it a thing. It's like it's a thing that you enter into.
Yes.
And if you're not aware that the possibility of going from loving, sweet, kind to subtly picking you apart in little ways to now you can't really speak up for yourself or you'll be punished, to now let me pick and choose, like you say, lose your voice. And when you lose your voice, you've now lost your power.
Yes.
And when you lose your power, you're just completely vulnerable to whatever is going on. And it just, like you said, just deteriorates. So I just thank you so much for bringing this information forward so that women, men alike could begin to pay attention to the signs, because if you don't know, you don't
Yes.
know. And then before
Exactly.
you, by the time you do know, you're
Yes.
like, wow, oh, now that makes sense. Why
Exactly.
I've had this experience, because I've been
Exactly.
in a situation where it took a long, long time, and still didn't know, like, oh, wow, huh, that's why I'm so broken.
Yes. Exactly.
That's why I'm
Every
missing so many pieces. That's why I'm so I didn't understand, and I want my heart is for people to at least have the opportunity to have some awareness, be able to see the signs, and know that you're not alone and that it's not you.
Exactly, exactly, Trina. And obviously, and everything in hindsight, right, is 2020.
Mhm.
That after the fact, you can go back and pick apart the pieces and say, oh, well, now that all makes sense. But when you're in a relationship like this, again, you're blinded by many things. You love the person. There's a lot of things that you justify and say, oh, again, I must have misunderstood. But I do want to speak to that, Trina. Because it's something that I now, am very, very intentional with my own children about recognizing, and with clients, with anyone really. Awareness is the first step. Awareness with anything. And I say this to clients, even not even about narcissistic abuse, to say, if you are not aware of a problem or an issue, there's no way you can help rectify it or fix it,
Mhm.
right? Awareness is the first step, because when you're aware and say, okay, this isn't healthy, right? I recognize that, other relationships aren't like this. I look at other friends, family. So now what, right? So now where do you go from there? So what I tell a lot of people, and again, I speak also from the energy side as a Reiki master. Everything with energy work is about feeling, right? It's how
Mm.
and that's how that's who I am in general. Like, everything is based on how I feel, to the point of, I mean, I could go extreme of how I get dressed in the morning or what I eat for a meal. It's how do I feel, right? And that might be just me, but that's okay. But what I tell my children, what I tell clients, and what I tell people, men or women at my narcissistic abuse support group, is that pay attention to how you feel in these situations. So let's go back to Jenny and her boyfriend, right? Jenny, in that situation, probably doesn't feel good, right? She might not understand the workings of why, but it's like, I'm feeling hurt. My feelings are hurt. My boyfriend's not apologizing or taking any onus of it. Now, on top of it, he's blaming me and is getting mad and getting upset. Now he's punishing me, and we're not going out to dinner with our friends, and he's barely speaking to me, right? It doesn't feel good. Okay. So pay attention to the feeling, because I will speak now from a personal standpoint. In the length of my very long relationship, I recognized that things didn't feel right. So in these many situations, in these situations where there was fighting and arguing and blowouts, I didn't understand at the time what was actually happening, okay? But I understood, like, this doesn't feel good. This does not feel like it should be normal. Look, every couple or every even friends have arguments, right? That's normal. Coworkers, bosses, like, people have arguments, but it's the how, right? There's a way to calmly voice your opinion, talk about it, again, make amends, but there's none of that in a narcissistic relationship. So those things didn't feel right to me. And then what happened? It was like, okay, I justify it somehow in my head. Well, it was just this one time. It's okay. Sweep it under the carpet, and things are okay again, right? Until it's not, until there's another situation. Okay. So even though all these situations can be different, they're different issues. Again, the pattern is the same underneath. right? The pattern of the spikes of all the emotions and the anger and the yelling and the punishment, all of that is the same. It doesn't matter what the situation is.
Yeah, I love that, the feeling, how it makes you feel, because a lot of times, we ignore our feelings. We,
Yes,
like you say, we rationalize, we try and explain it away. Well, no, and in that space of the feeling, there's also that, in what I speak to my clients around, is that intuitive knowing, that
yes,
place in your, that voice inside of you that's saying, like you said, this isn't normal.
yes.
This doesn't, not only does it not feel good, it just is not right for me. It
Exactly.
doesn't
Exactly.
resonate with what I want for my life. This is not
Exactly.
where I want my life to go, because you have every right to create and experience life the way you want it. And I
Exactly.
believe part of the power loss, and I know the power loss is not only not using your voice, but silencing your voice inside. Because
Yes.
we know you may not be able to explain it, like you say, you may not be able to define it, you may not be able to label it, you may not be able to write a dissertation on it necessarily.
Yes. Yes.
Somewhere in you, you're out of balance, out of alignment, out of the, this is not what is right for you.
Or this is not me. I love actually, Trina, that you speak to that because I'll stay there for a moment. That's exactly what it is. It goes down to a very from a superficial level to a very root level of exactly. We are all here. We are all made and put on this earth to have a power and do something great. We all have a light, right? And whatever you believe, God, the universe, it doesn't matter. But we're here to do something great and we're here to live a happy and healthy life. And in these kinds of relationships, it literally strips you of that. So that again, it's not only is that, oh, I don't have a voice in my home and what we want to do as a family or that it comes to then now I'm not being true to who I authentically am because my light is so dim, my heart is so broken that I'm not actually even being the person that I'm supposed to be. And there were many times over the years where I recognized like this isn't the woman that I want to be. This isn't the mother that I want to be. And many times I felt like this isn't who I was even meant to be. I want to be X, Y, and Z, right? So again, I kind of like even felt those things along the way that like I'm not being true to myself. I'm not being true to who I am. And that's not okay. That's not okay in any capacity, in any relationship, whether it has a narcissistic tag or not in a toxic, unhealthy relationship because there are levels, right? There are relationships that could be unhealthy and toxic and maybe isn't narcissistic. Narcissistic is the extreme, I feel. But again, it is coming to a place of listening to your heart, right, and paying attention and in tune to your own emotions and your own feelings because that's just who you are, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love a few things, points you've made so far around awareness, that you spoke around awareness, and the not remaining true to yourself, because
Yes.
losing self is so important. And so I'm going to take a little break here because this is a perfect segue
Mhm.
to remind everyone the exciting news that I have, that on Friday, my first book is being launched on Amazon to be downloaded, an ebook, and it's around awareness. Awareness put me on, and put me on means, you know, hipped me to something, made me aware, brought it to my attention, changed my life, created some pivotal catalyst in my life. And so a group of us have come together to share our stories around how awareness was pivotal in creating some change, some catalysts for change around leadership. It could be business, it could be, personal, in different ways. So I share some of my story around how I triumphed over some life challenges. And so I share 7 wisdom nuggets in there. And one of those nuggets you just shared about the high price for not staying true to self. There's a high price for not staying true to yourself. And one of those things, if you back up to before Jenny got into the narcissistic situation, there was some part of her that I would imagine wasn't fully in tune with who she was, didn't know her power, didn't know the truth of her value, her worth, what was possible for her that could lead to possibly being more susceptible.
Yes,
But like you said,
absolutely.
once you get into it, sometimes you get a second chance. You get a second chance. It's not the end of the story that you get a second chance, and I share that there. So I just want to share just the quick little book cover with you
Mm.
guys so you can see it, and I hope that everyone would go out and download it on Friday. It will be in Amazon as an ebook that you can download here. So yes, so Deanna, before we move back into any further conversation, I would love for you to share with the audience how they can reach out to you, how they can find out about possibly your support group, and anything else that you want to share with them.
Sure. Well, first off, congratulations on your book. That's very
Thank
exciting. I
you.
love it. Wonderful. Yes, absolutely. Well, the best way to reach out to me would be my website. And my website is www.healinghandsbydeanna.com. And that is my website as far as for massage, for Reiki, life coaching, and all of the events. So the support group come under my group events
Mhm.
because I also run a monthly Reiki healing circle as well. So all of that is on my website. Information, how to reach out, booking, everything. Um, what else did you ask me? As far as, yes, how to reach out to me there. I don't know if you asked another
Yeah,
question there.
and you
Sorry.
also have a special offer for the audience.
Oh, yes, thank you. Yes. So I do have a special offer. Thank you for the reminder. For anyone listening today on Trina's podcast, if you book a service, again, it could be a private session or it could be one of the group sessions. If you put in the coupon code Trina's listeners, so it's TRINIS listeners, you'll get a 10% discount of whatever the service is or the event. So that's special
Awesome.
for your listeners today.
Well, thank you for sharing that gift, and please check
Absolutely.
Deanna out. And if you know someone, if it's not you, that would be interested in some of her services and some of the group work that she has, please share the information because it's important for us to support one another. And I would imagine, Deanna, since you have this group, that you found that when people are going through some of these toxic relationships, whether it be narcissistic or not specifically, but unhealthy relationships, they keep silent, as we spoke earlier, which creates a level of isolation, feeling like one is alone. How important has it been for the people who have come to your groups to be in community and have that support to know they're not alone?
I love that, Trina. Honestly, it's one of the most rewarding things for me in running these groups. And I run this group in two places now. It started in Charlotte, and I run this similar group in Raleigh as well. So now I have two. But first off, that's what most people say is, "Wow, I'm not alone." Like there are other people going through very similar things because I think that is a light bulb moment for many people because however they find their way to the group, they're looking for something, looking for help, and they're like, wow, there's other people that are experiencing very similar things. And so what I say every month is that this is a forum. I'm creating the space to have education, right? We always have different topics where I educate every month. Either it's me or I have a guest speaker come in
Mhm.
specifically for this kind of abuse. We educate, we learn, we grow, we recover, we heal in community. Okay. And
Mhm.
that is the piece that it's going to be 2 years now that I've been running the group in Charlotte and almost a year in Raleigh. And one of the things that warms my heart, Trina, is that I've seen people that will connect with each other, take each other's numbers and meet offline on their own that are helping each other and supporting each other through their oh, it gives me chills now, like through their recovery and healing. And it literally, it brings tears to my eyes sometimes. And people will, I see it, and people will say, well, Mary is my friend, and we've been working through this, and I see it happening, and it's like, for me, it's I'm so honored to be able to create that space, because I come from a place where I wish there was this kind of group when
Mhm.
I needed it. And that's actually how it even started. It came from a passion inside my soul, that I was looking for help. I was looking for community of people to understand and to help recover. And there wasn't anything like it. So I'm very honored and humbled every single month, and it's beautiful that people are finding community in the group. We also have a private Facebook page as well, so that for more of the day to day, if they have a problem, an issue, they can reach out. And I think it's beautiful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Wow. How awesome is it turning your pain into the power of
It's
creating such community and group that it's now expanded even to another city?
Yeah, it's
And
unbelievable, Trina.
yeah, and you're finding that people are really building community, building relationships of support, and learning that they're not alone, and that is the power of community. And I'm just starting group programs now myself within my coaching practice, and encouraging people that there are sometimes people say, well, no, I just want one-on-one, because that's part of that conditioning around our shame and our guilt
Yeah,
around our lives. And we don't want people to know how much we took, how long we stayed. And sometimes you have to really just understand that you're not alone,
yes,
that you're
yes,
not alone. You're not the only person that's going through something, but knowing that you can get support from community and not hide from it because you feel shame and guilt. Step forward. It takes courage. It takes courage to share your
absolutely.
story. It took courage for me to tell my story in my book. That takes courage. But what's important about that for me is, if we don't tell our stories, we continue to suffer in silence, and others don't get the benefit of knowing that there's hope. So,
Exactly.
like we spoke earlier, the first step is around awareness, for people to become aware, because
Yeah,
you're not going to know what you're in, or that you're in something, if you're not aware. So how do we get people to a place that's earlier? And that's what we're doing here, is to get in front of it. Maybe for Jenny, let's say
yes,
Jenny
yes,
part two, let's say Jenny has gone, but there's a twin Jenny that we can now today say, you could be the next Jenny. But maybe if you hear us telling the truth of our stories, you may
yes,
now notice it on the first symptom. The first
exactly.
time out, you become aware, or the second or the third. But nonetheless, once you become aware of something's off and you make a decision to do something about it, then there are support groups like yours that are there to help you heal once you become aware. So it's multifaceted, I would think.
Absolutely, Trina. And actually, I feel it's a pretty much like a three-step process, in the sense of the awareness is number one, right? You're in a relationship or a friendship, and now you say, oh, wow, okay, there's something not right here. The next step is then making that decision. It's a conscious choice of, am I going to stay in this relationship even though I know it's not healthy now, right? Or am I going to leave it? And honestly, in my support group, a couple of things. One, I'm always very aware that it takes a lot of courage for every single person that shows up there. And many have told me like that they almost walked away, they almost didn't come, this kind of thing. It takes a lot of strength, a lot of courage, right? To Because now you're facing the beast, right? It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm now recognizing there's a problem, but if I'm quiet about it, maybe it's really not there, right? But now you're saying, oh, no, 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 I'm going to this group because I'm dealing with this issue. So that's number one. But two, I always recognize that people in the group are all at different stages of their journey, right? So, meaning some people are still in these relationships trying to get information to figure out, what am I dealing with, right? Some of the people have already left these relationships and are trying to recover and heal from it, the damage, the trail of damage that was left behind. And then others are much more farther in the recovery and healing process, and they're there also to kind of help support and build the community, which is great. But what I feel though at that point of, and this comes to speaks to taking back your power, I feel that if you are aware, step one, if you're aware of what's going on in your relationship, it's almost like you can't unknow it. You can't
Mhm.
unsee it, right? I always use the analogy like now you're looking at your relationship with a different set of glasses on, right?
Mhm.
Because now what used to be okay is not okay anymore because now you're aware. And that's where people then get to this point, this pinnacle fork in the road. Do I stay or do I go? And then what happens? A lot of times a person will try, Jenny will say, I'm going to break up with my boyfriend. And now there's a whole other slew of things that will entail from there because now that person, the toxic person, the narcissist does not want you to leave. They want still the control over you. That's where things get very ugly. And I witness it all the time in my groups. But I love seeing even the progress because from one month to the next, someone will say, oh, I'm trying to get out and this, that, and this month, I'm a little bit further ahead. So I recognize that people are either still in it trying to get out, planning their exit strategy. Some people are still in it deciding if they're going to stay and basically tolerate this for the rest of their life, right? Knowing that they're going to not be true to themselves, right? And other people have left the abusive relationship and are there to educate, heal themselves, recover. We do all different topics. We speak to, about the abuse itself and about narcissism, but also about self-care, self-love, all the things that you can do, again, on the recovery side to bring yourself back to center, right? Taking your power back, getting your voice back, all of that. There's many, many steps and many things that you can do. So I guess my point is that I recognize that people are in different stages of this. Awareness is number one. The second point, the second pillar is really is deciding. It's a conscious choice. Am I going to allow this other person, right, to control me, steal my power, or am I going to say, no matter how hard it is, right, and it is difficult to leave a narcissistic relationship because of all the reasons I just said, it gets ugly, explosive, dangerous, even. Okay. And so most people say, oh, forget it then. I'm just going to stay where I am because that's comfortable. Even though it's miserable, it's comfortable and it's safe, but it's not. So it's then that conscious choice of leaving. And then if they do leave, then it's how can I now shine my light again, right? And I'll just speak for myself. I'll say this here. Again, I'm very visual, so I use a lot of visuals and analogies and explaining things. And for me specifically, being in a narcissistic relationship for a long time, I felt as though, like how if you have a lamp, right, with a lampshade, there's a light bulb, and a lampshade. And I, after the fact, use this analogy to realize that over time and over the years, like another lampshade kept getting put on top of this lamp, like just kept getting covered and covered, like one more lampshade, one more lampshade. And then what's happening? The light is getting dimmer and dimmer, right? And to the point where, I mean, my pinnacle point before I left this relationship was I felt like I had no light left. I was so broken. My spirit, it was the darkest time of my life. And what I feel like after making the conscious choice of leaving, since then, it's been pulling off each of those lampshades one at a time, slowly with the things that I've been doing to help heal myself. That now I feel like, and people around me notice it. I notice it. I know it about myself, but people are noticing my light keeps getting brighter and brighter and brighter. So I use that as an analogy because it's so perfect and so fitting for this situation.
Wow, I love that analogy. That is
Yeah.
such a beautiful visual. Yes. In the process, people speak about peeling the onion, it's that process. I love the taking, not only the putting on, and what I heard from you when you said the putting on of the lampshades one at a time, it's so subtle and progressive that you don't even notice that the light is getting dimmer because you
Yes.
become accustomed to it. It just becomes normal. But that thing inside, something doesn't feel right. This just doesn't, that doesn't go out. That thing, I think, starts getting louder, at least in my experience. It starts
It's
getting
your
louder and
intuition.
louder
Yes.
and louder and louder and louder to a point I couldn't sleep at night, or,
Yes.
just the unhealthiness of the relationship that I was in just got to a point where it's like, no, there's a decision to be made. Like you said, there's a decision to be made now. You decide to stay. Be clear that you're making a decision to continue to receive what you're receiving. That's your conscious choice. And if it is, there's no judgment. But know that
Right.
that's the choice that you make. And what I said for myself is now you don't get to complain because it's the choice that you're making. That may sound harsh, but that was the reality for myself.
Yes.
And now, if I'm going to make that, and then I had to be honest with myself now, if you're going to make the other choice, know that there's a cost for everything, not to
Absolutely.
sugarcoat it. There's a cost, or there's a cost to stay, and there's a cost to leave.
Exactly.
And you have to
Exactly.
decide for yourself which cost you're willing to pay.
Absolutely.
In addition, there is support, there is hope. There are people like Deanna that have a coaching practice that has groups that can be of support. There is me that is working with women to elevate your power and to live. There are a lot of us, there are other guests that I've had on that were here for the purpose of spreading the word, to create awareness and to create support, because we're all in this work together for the
Yep.
purpose of elevating women into their power and rebuilding even after, because it is a process of taking the
Absolutely.
shades off. It's a process of healing that takes time. It is not just, oh, I left and it's over.
No, not at
It's
all.
it's a
And
whole lot
it's
of
a
work.
painful process. I'll be honest, I'll be 100%, authentic. It's a painful process. But I love what you said though, Trina, in that there are consequences either way, right? If
Mhm.
you decide to stay, well, now you're not living in your truth and you know that you're not where you're supposed to be. You know that you're not being all that you could be, right? We're all meant to be the best versions of ourselves, right? Leaving has a whole other set of consequences because it is painful. There is struggle. There is trauma. Are a lot of things. But I can tell you, and this is what I tell many people. Again, I feel like I always say, like, I'm on the other side now, right? I've been to hell and back, and I'm on the other side now, trying to help other people get to the other side because I was there, right? And I'm trying to build that support and empowerment. But what I say is that even though, however difficult it has been for me, for my children, my whole family, right? It has been really difficult. The healing, the recovery. I would do it again in a heartbeat. And I tell you why. There's been not 1 ounce of regret that, oh, maybe I should have stayed. Not 1 ounce. And I swear on my parents in heaven that that is how I feel. And why? Because I feel like it's a second chance at my life for me. I
Mhm.
was living a certain way that was not true to who I am, right? It was not what was meant for me. And now, in doing what I did, however painful, and the aftermath and the struggle and the continued struggle, okay, I I recognize that this is my second chance because now my light gets to shine bright. Now I get to be who I'm meant to be and help other people. But I wasn't even in the space to be able to do that when I was in it myself.
Mhm.
So I come from a place of gratitude because sometimes, Trina, I'm still amazed at how everything has unfolded for me. Again, it took work. It didn't magically happen, for sure. I will be upfront about that, but I would do it again in a heartbeat, and I continue to, because it is healing is a journey. It's not an overnight fix.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm so thankful that you have taken the journey, you have done the work to peel off the shades so that your light could shine, so that we could be connected. And you be here today to share your story and offer hope to other women and men who may be in these toxic, unhealthy relationships, no matter the title or the description, and not get caught
Yes.
up on words and definitions, but understand that if you're in a situation where you're not being true to yourself, your voice is not being heard, that you're not in a place that you feel that you can authentically and unapologetically be you and live out the dreams and visions and passions
Yes.
that live inside of you, then there are some serious decisions that you need to make. Whatever
Yes.
they are, we're not here to tell anyone exactly what you should do, but to offer you hope that
Yes.
you can create the life that you want for yourself, that is calling from inside of you. And it's
Yeah.
reach out to whomever that you need for support, because community is where we're going to do this. And I just love that you shared your story so boldly. Go ahead. I think you want
Oh, thank you. I was just going to say exactly that about the community, but also I feel like the people that were, I felt like handpicked picked and had placed in my path
Mhm.
while I was, in the aftermath and the
Mhm.
recovery. Because again, I mean, whatever believes, but whatever people believe, that's fine. But for me, I felt that really God was placing all of the right people in my path because I made the choice, right? I made the conscious choice to then, like, I love the way you say, like, create the life that I was meant to lead and be the person I was meant to be. I had to make that difficult choice. It was one of the most difficult choices of my life. And once I did that, it was as though I was being led and I was being supported. So there's that saying. I'm also very big into like positive affirmations and things that are just positive mindset and saying. And there's that one that says like at the moment of commitment, the universe conspires to help you or to assist you. And I love that because that's what it felt like to me. And that was a deep feeling. It was like, wow, I made this decision, which was so hard, right? To get to that point. But once I did, it was like, okay, then I'm just going to keep taking the next right step, the next right step. And it was about really, it was a long journey of self discovery and rediscovering myself, which was beautiful. And if I may speak to that for a moment,
Mhm.
because
Please.
what I recognize and what I now help people with in my group and privately is that when you are in a narcissistic relationship or even just a toxic relationship, you become entangled with that other person's their own stuff, their own baggage, their trauma, right? Again, hurt people, meaning that they have their own stuff, which is why they do the things that they do, right? But you get meshed into that to the point where you don't even understand what is you anymore and what is that person. Okay. So I mean, I do exercises with this in our group where step one, once you've made the decision to leave, is now saying, okay, I mean, I did it on paper. I almost like wrote out to say, okay, this is things that I like to do. I mean, simple things about this is me and this was not me. Okay, this was someone else's stuff that I took on, right? Unknowingly, subconsciously, right? But now you are separating it and you're saying, okay, this is what I want to keep because this is me, this is who I am, and all of this other stuff, I'm letting it go. I'm releasing it. It's not mine. So it truly, I feel, is a journey of self-discovery once you leave a relationship like this, because you're getting back to yourself. You're getting back to, it goes back to the lampshades, your light, who you are, right? And that takes time. It takes, strength and courage, all of those things. But that part of it was beautiful. That part of it was like, I get to decide. Like, I get to decide what I want to have for dinner, like it's simple things, right? But I get to decide how I want to raise my kids, or I get to decide. And there's something very empowering about that. And what I found was that with each little step, with each little baby step of like, no, I get to decide this, I'm going to decide, right? I kept feeling more and more empowered that, wow, this is amazing. This is actually what's meant to be in everyone's life, right? Everyone should have control of their own life, their own power, right? And mine had been, taken. So I was taking my power back. And that part of it was beautiful for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely. That is a beautiful way to wrap up our time together with the hope of what's on the other side, that you would never take it back and that I love that. Yeah, you get to decide. I get to choose. You get to choose what I do, what I want, and that's the way that we walk in our power. And it's I would verbalize it this way. It's not selfish.
Right.
And sometimes women are made to feel that it's selfish to do things your way, but it's living that you were sent here to this earth to be you
And
and
no
to
one else
live.
is you. No one else is you, right? So
Yeah,
it's building back that confidence in yourself, that trust in yourself. That's what it boils down to. Exactly. It's not selfish. It's giving yourself the same unconditional love that you would give to another person in your life. It's doing that for
absolutely.
yourself.
Yeah, it's nothing better than living out the truth of who you are. And no matter the cost or the process, as you shared, or the journey to get there, it is so worth it when you
Yes,
get there. It's worth it even before
absolutely.
you all the way get there, as you begin to unpeel it back. It's so worth it because you start seeing the light. You start seeing the light. You start seeing the light. So
Yes.
yes, I love that. It is so worth worth the choice and the price of self-actualization, self-realization, rediscovering self.
Rediscovering self and recognizing that your pain, that's how I feel, had a purpose, right? Everyone has suffering in their lives in some capacity, but it's what you do with it, right? We all suffer, we're humans, right? But do you stay stuck in it? Do you let it ruin the rest of your life? Or do you then take it and use the pain, use the suffering to then launch you into the life that you said, like, that you're meant to lead?
Absolutely. So that's why you have learned and shared with us today how to turn pain into power. And I just want to thank you so much. And I want to give you an opportunity to have some closing thoughts. Anything you want to finally leave the audience with before we leave
Yes,
today?
thank you. I would say that, again, I tell a lot of this to my children, but also to my clients and people, that only you know what is best for you. So a lot of times people want to say, oh, you should do this, and your friend, your family, oh, you should do that. Oh, you shouldn't stay in that relationship. It's abusive. But in the end, right, and that is connecting to, again, who you are at your core, only you know what is best for you. So trust that, and feel into your intuition in taking the next right step.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And as Deanna shared with you all today, that one of the options that you get to choose is to leave, and the other option you get to choose is to stay. And one of the things that can keep people in relationships or fear that they can't leave and make them feel less empowered is when they don't understand their finances, when they don't understand what their power is around money, when they don't understand what's going on in the family's finances, or if I leave, can I take care of myself and what will my financial situation look like? And that is what we're going to talk about next week on the show
Mm.
with Maria Iglesias Martinez, where she will speak around women being empowered through the wisdom of their finances and being able to make choices in these similar situations because you now understand what your financial situation is, because that can be something that can keep you bound to a relationship that you should release. So we look forward to seeing you again next week, Wednesday at noon, right here on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And join Maria and I for another great conversation. Deanna, thanks again for joining
Thank
us.
you. Thank you
And
so much for having me, Trina. It's been a pleasure, an honor, really. Thank you.
yeah, you're most welcome and thank you.
Have a great